The bathroom door creaked open, and my heart stopped. Steam swirled around me, the shower's warmth clinging to my skin. But it was his eyes, those piercing, unyielding eyes that froze me in place. My roommate, Ethan, stood there, not turning away, not apologizing, just staring, like he'd stumbled into a truth he wasn't ready to name. I clutched the towel tighter, water dripping onto the cold tiles. My voice caught somewhere between panic and defiance. "Dude, what the hell?" I managed, but Ethan didn't flinch. His gaze held mine, raw and unguarded. And in that endless second, I felt something shift, a spark of something neither of us had dared to acknowledge. We'd been roommates for 6 months in our cramped Brooklyn apartment. 2 college sophomores scraping by on part-time jobs and student loans. I was Jamie Carter, 20, a graphic design major with a knack for hiding behind sarcasm and late-night study sessions. Ethan Hayes, also 20, was the quieter one, biology major, runner's build, with dark curls that always fell into his hazel eyes. He had this way of listening, really listening, that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. But we never talked about us. Not like that. Not until now. The shower incident wasn't the first time I'd noticed him watching me. There'd been glances, quick, stolen moments when he thought I wasn't looking. At first, I told myself it was nothing. Just 2 guys sharing a space, bumping into each other's lives. But the way his eyes lingered now, bold and unapologetic, told a different story. My pulse raced, not just from embarrassment, but from the question burning in my chest. What does he see when he looks at me? I'd grown up in a small Ohio town, where different was a dirty word. My parents were good people, but their love came with expectations: church on Sundays, a girlfriend by prom, a life that fit neatly into their picket fence dreams. I'd known I was gay since I was 14, but I buried it deep, locked it away behind smiles and half-truths. Moving to New York for college was my escape, a chance to breathe. But even here, I kept my walls up. Ethan, Thuff was starting to chip away at them. "Jamie," he said finally, his voice low, almost a whisper. I didn't mean to, but he didn't finish. He stepped closer, the door clicking shut behind him, and the air between us grew heavy, electric. I should have told him to leave. I should have laughed it off, made it a joke. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because the truth was, I'd been watching him too. For weeks. I caught myself memorizing the way he moved, how he'd stretch after a run, his shirt lifting just enough to show a sliver of skin, how he'd hum off-key while cooking pasta on our ancient stove. I told myself it was nothing, just a crush I could ignore. But now, with him standing there, the space between us shrinking, I wasn't so sure. "Ethan," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "What are you doing?" He swallowed, his Adam's apple bobbing. "I don't know," he admitted. But he didn't look away. I needed to see you." Those words hit like a punch, unraveling something I'd kept tightly coiled. I wanted to ask what he meant, to demand answers, but my body moved before my brain could catch up. I stepped toward him, the towel slipping slightly, my bare feet leaving wet prints on the floor. We were close now, too close, and I could see the flecks of gold in his eyes, the faint tremor in his hands. "See me?" I echoed, my voice barely above a whisper. You've been seeing me every day? Not like this, he said. And there it was, the confession neither of us was ready for. But both of us needed. The bathroom felt smaller now, the steam curling around us like a cocoon. I could hear my own heartbeat, loud and insistent, drowning out the drip of the faucet. Ethan's hand twitched, like he wanted to reach out but didn't trust himself. And me. I was terrified, exhilarated, caught in a moment that could either break us or make us something new. Say something, I urged, my voice cracking. Please. But he didn't speak. Instead, he closed the distance, his hand brushing my arm, tentative, like he was testing the weight of a truth too heavy to hold alone. My skin burned under his touch, and for the first time in years, I didn't want to hide. The moment hung there, fragile as glass, and I waited for it to shatter. Ethan's fingers lingered on my arm, his touch both a question and an answer. I wanted to pull away, to retreat to the safety of denial. But his eyes held me captive, searching for something I wasn't sure I could give. Jamie, he said again, his voice rougher now, like he was fighting his own fear. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make this weird. He stopped, running a hand through his curls, his frustration palpable. I don't know how to do this. Do what? I asked, though I already knew. My heart was a drumbeat, loud and unsteady, and I could feel the heat of his body even through the damp towel between us. The bathroom was a pressure cooker, every word and glance building towards something inevitable. I've been trying to figure you out, he said, his eyes dropping to the floor, then back to me. Ever since we moved in together. You're different, Jamie. Not in a bad way. In a way that makes me want to know more. His words were a spark, igniting something reckless in me. I'd spent years hiding, blending into the background. But Ethan saw the version I showed the world. But the one I barely let myself acknowledge. It was terrifying. It was exhilarating. And it was dangerous. Because I wasn't sure I could trust him with the truth. No more, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. What's that supposed to mean? You barge in here, catch me half naked, and now you want to play therapist. He flinched, but he didn't back down. That's not what I meant. I'm not trying to mess with you. I feel something. Okay. And I think you do too. The air went still. My throat tightened, and I could feel the weight of every lie I'd ever told myself pressing down on me. I wanted to deny it, to laugh it off like I always did. But the truth was clawing its way out, and Ethan's gaze was the key unlocking it. Feel something, I said, stepping back, the towel slipping a little as I moved. Ethan, we're roommates. We're friends. Don't make this into something it's not. But even as I said it, I knew I was lying. I'd felt it too, those quiet moments when our hands brushed reaching for the same coffee mug. The way my stomach flipped when he smiled at me across the room. I'd told myself it was nothing, just a fleeting attraction. But now, with him standing so close, I couldn't pretend anymore. Jamie, he said, softer now, his hand reaching out again, this time resting lightly on my shoulder. You don't have to hide from me. Hide. The word hit like a bullet. I'd been hiding my whole life from my parents, my friends, myself. But Ethan wasn't just anyone. He was the guy who stayed up with me during finals week, who laughed at my terrible puns, who made our tiny apartment feel like home. And now he was asking me to be honest. Not just with him, but with myself. I'm not hiding. I lied. But my voice cracked, betraying me. I don't know what you want from me. Ethan, I want you to be real, he said, his voice steady now, like he'd found his footing. I want you to tell me what you're afraid of. Because I'm scared too. But I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. His words broke something in me. A dam I'd built to keep the world out. I wanted to tell him everything, how I'd spent years hating myself for who I was. How I'd moved to New York to start over, but still carried the weight of my past. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I reached out, my hand trembling as it found his wrist, anchoring me to this moment. Ethan, I whispered, my voice barely audible over the hum of the bathroom fan. What if this ruins everything? He smiled, small and uncertain, but it was enough to make my chest ache. What if it doesn't? He said. And just like that, the space between us vanished. His hand slid from my shoulder to my neck, his thumb brushing against my jaw, and I forgot how to breathe. I'd never been this close to anyone. Not like this. Not with my heart laid bare. But Ethan wasn't pulling away, and neither was I. The kiss came slowly, hesitantly, like we were both afraid it would break us. His lips were soft, tentative, but there was a hunger beneath it, a need that matched my own. I kissed him back, my hands finding his shirt, pulling him closer until there was no space left between us. The towel fell to the floor, forgotten, and for the first time, I didn't care who saw me. When we finally pulled apart, breathless and dazed, Ethan rested his forehead against mine. I've wanted to do that for so long, he whispered. Me too, I admitted, and the weight of those words felt like freedom. But freedom comes with a price. As we stood there, tangled in each other, I couldn't shake the fear that this was just the beginning of something beautiful, or something that could tear us apart. The next morning, the apartment felt different, like the air itself was holding its breath. Ethan was in the kitchen, flipping pancakes with that same focused look he got when studying for exams. I stood in the doorway, my heart still racing from last night, wondering if we'd just rewritten the rules of our lives or made a terrible mistake. Hey, I said, my voice rough from a sleepless night. I'd spent hours replaying the kiss, the way his hands felt, the way my fear had melted into something warmer, something real. But now, in the harsh light of day, doubt crept in like an unwelcome guest. Ethan turned, his smile hesitant but genuine. Morning. You want coffee? He gestured to the pot, acting like nothing had changed. But his eyes told a different story. They were searching, waiting for me to set the tone. I nodded, sliding onto a stool at the counter. Yeah, thanks. My hands fidgeted with the edge of my sleeve, and I hated how exposed I felt, even fully clothed. Last night had been a leap, but today was the landing, and I wasn't sure if the ground would hold. He poured me a mug, his movements careful, deliberate. About last night, he started, setting the coffee in front of me. I don't regret it, Jamie, but I need to know where you're at. Where was I at? I wanted to laugh, to deflect. But his honesty deserved better. I don't regret it either, I said, my voice low. But I'm scared. Ethan. I've never done this before. Not out in the open. He leaned against the counter, his expression softening. Me neither. I mean, I've known I'm bi for a while, but I've never acted on it. Not like this. Not with someone who matters. Someone who matters. Those words hit harder than I expected, stirring a warmth I wasn't used to feeling. But they also brought a new fear. What if this was too much? Too fast? What if the world outside our apartment wasn't ready for us? I grew up in a place where this wasn't okay, I said, staring into my coffee. My dad, he'd lose it if he knew. And I've spent so long pretending. I don't know how to stop. Ethan reached across the counter, his hand covering mine. You don't have to have it all figured out. We can take it slow. Figure it out together. But I'm not going to pretend last night didn't happen. His touch grounded me, but it also reminded me of the stakes. This wasn't just about us. It was about my family, my friends, the life I'd built on half-truths. Coming out meant risking it all, and I wasn't sure I was ready. Let's just keep this between us for now, I said, meeting his eyes. I need time. He nodded, but I could see the flicker of disappointment in his expression. Okay. For now. But Jamie, I'm not going to hide forever. The rest of the day was a dance of normalcy and tension. We went to classes, grabbed lunch at our usual deli. But every glance, every brush of shoulders felt charged, like we were carrying a secret too big to contain. By evening, we were back in the apartment, sprawled on the couch watching some dumb action movie. But neither of us was really watching. Ethan, I said, breaking the silence. What happens if this doesn't work? If we crash and burn? He turned to me, his expression serious. Then we crash. But I'd rather try and fail than spend another day wondering what could have been. His words were a challenge, one I wasn't sure I could meet. But as he leaned closer, his hand finding mine, I felt a spark of courage. Maybe, just maybe, I could be brave enough to try. That night, we kissed again. Slower this time. More certain. It wasn't just a moment, it was a promise. One that terrified me as much as it thrilled me. But as I fell asleep, his arm draped over me. I knew there was no going back. Weeks passed, and our secret grew heavier. Ethan and I were careful, stealing moments behind closed doors. But the world outside our apartment didn't stop turning. Friends noticed the way we looked at each other, the way we lingered too long in each other's space. Questions were coming, and I wasn't ready to answer them. One night, we went to a party at our friend Mia's place. A crowded loft in Williamsburg filled with art majors and cheap beer. Ethan was across the room, laughing with some guys from his bio class. And I couldn't take my eyes off him. He caught my gaze, flashing a smile that made my chest tighten. But then Mia sidled up to me, her eyes sharp. So, she said, sipping her drink. You and Ethan. What's the deal? I froze, my beer halfway to my mouth. What do you mean? We're just roommates. She raised an eyebrow, unconvinced. Sure, Jamie. But roommates don't look at each other like you two do. Spill. I laughed it off, but her words stuck with me. The truth was, I was falling for Ethan hard. Every touch, every late-night talk, every shared glance was pulling me deeper. But the fear of being seen, of being judged, kept me tethered to silence. Later, as we walked home through the chilly Brooklyn streets, Ethan slipped his hand into mine. I tensed, glancing around, but the street was empty. "Relax," he whispered, squeezing my hand. "It's just us." But it wasn't just us. The next day, my phone buzzed with a text from my mom. "Heard you're spending a lot of time with your roommate. Everything okay?" My stomach dropped. I hadn't told her anything, but small-town gossip had a way of traveling fast. Someone had seen us, or heard something, and now my carefully constructed world was starting to crack. "Ethan," I said that night, pacing our living room. "My mom knows something. I don't know how, but she does." He looked up from his textbook, concern creasing his brow. "What did she say?" "Just enough to freak me out," I said, running a hand through my hair. "What if she tells my dad?" "He'll flip. He's not like your parents." Ethan's family was different, open-minded, supportive. He'd come out to them last year, and they'd hugged him, told him they loved him no matter what. My parents, they'd probably drag me to church and pray the gay away. "Then we'll deal with it," Ethan said, standing to pull me into a hug. "You're not alone in this, Jamie. Whatever happens, I'm here." But his words couldn't erase the dread pooling in my gut. That night, I dreamed of my dad's voice, sharp and disappointed, telling me I'd let him down. I woke up in a cold sweat, Ethan's arm around me, and for the first time, his warmth wasn't enough to chase the fear away. The next week, things got worse. A guy from my design class, Liam, cornered me after lecture. "Yo, Carter," he said, smirking. "You and Hayes seem real close lately. You guys, like, a thing." My face burned, but I forced a laugh. "Nah, man, just roommates." He didn't buy it, and his smirk stayed with me all day. The walls were closing in, and I could feel the weight of every choice I'd made. Ethan wanted to be open, to live without hiding, but I wasn't there yet. And the more I pulled back, the more I could see the hurt in his eyes. The tension between us grew, a silent rift we couldn't ignore. Ethan wanted more openness, more honesty, but I was stuck, paralyzed by the fear of losing everything. One night, after a quiet dinner, he finally broke the silence. "Jamie," he said, setting his fork down, "I can't keep doing this. Hiding. Pretending we're just friends when we're so much more." I stared at my plate, my appetite gone. "I'm trying, Ethan. I need time." "Time for what?" he asked, his voice sharp with frustration. "To decide if you're okay with who you are. With us. Because I'm all in, Jamie. But I can't do this alone." His words cut deep, exposing the truth I'd been dodging. I wasn't just afraid of my family or my friends, I was afraid of myself. Of what it meant to love him openly, to claim this part of me I'd buried for so long. "I don't know how to be that person," I admitted, my voice breaking. I want to be, but I don't know how. Ethan's expression softened, and he reached for my hand. You don't have to know everything. Just let me in. Let me help you. But helping me meant facing my past. And that was a battle I wasn't sure I could win. The next day, I got a call from my dad. His voice was calm. Too calm. And it sent a chill down my spine. Jamie, he said, we need to talk. Your mom says you've been acting strange. What's going on? I lied. Of course. Told him school was stressful. That I was just tired. But the call shook me. And when I told Ethan, he didn't hide his frustration. You can't keep lying to them, he said. Not forever. They're going to find out. Jamie. And it's better if it comes from you. He was right. But the thought of telling my parents off, seeing the disappointment in their eyes, made me feel like I was drowning. I pulled away from Ethan, retreating to my room, claiming I had assignments to finish. But really, I was hiding again, building walls to keep him out. The next week, Ethan started spending more time out of the apartment. He'd go for runs, stay late at the library, and I could feel the distance growing between us. I missed the way we used to laugh, the way he'd make me feel like I could be myself. But I didn't know how to bridge the gap. One night, I came home to find him packing a bag. What's this? I asked, my heart sinking. I'm staying with Mia for a few days, he said, not meeting my eyes. I need space. Jamie, I can't keep waiting for you to decide if this is worth it. The words hit like a slap. You're leaving? I asked, my voice trembling. I'm not leaving you, he said, finally looking at me. But I can't stay here and watch you tear yourself apart. Figure out what you want. Jamie, I'll be here when you do. He walked out, and the apartment felt emptier than it ever had. I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands, and for the first time, I let myself cry. Not just for Ethan, but for the boy I'd been, the one who'd spent years hiding, afraid of who he was. I didn't want to be that boy anymore. But becoming someone new meant facing the truth. And I wasn't sure I had the strength. The days without Ethan were a blur of regret and self-doubt. The apartment was too quiet. The absence of his laughter a constant reminder of what I'd pushed away. I went through the motions classes. Work. Sleep, but it felt like I was living someone else's life. I started writing. At first, it was just a way to process, to get the chaos in my head onto paper. But soon, it became a letter to my parents, one I wasn't sure I'd ever send. Dear Mom and Dad, I wrote, there's something I've been keeping from you. I'm gay, and I'm in love with someone who makes me want to be better. The words felt like a confession and a release, but they also terrified me. What would they say? Would they still love me? One night, I went to Mia's loft, desperate to see Ethan. She let me in, her expression a mix of pity and frustration. He's in the guest room, she said. But Jamie, don't mess this up. He's hurting too. I found him sitting on the bed, his head in his hands. Ethan, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He looked up, his eyes tired but hopeful. What are you doing here? I'm sorry, I said, the words spilling out. I've been an idiot. I'm scared. Okay. Scared of losing you. Scared of losing my family. Scared of everything. But I don't want to lose you most of all. He stood, closing the distance between us. Then don't, he said. Be honest with me. Be honest with yourself. I took a deep breath, the letter burning a hole in my pocket. I'm trying. I wrote something for my parents. I don't know if I'll send it, but it's a start. His face softened, and he pulled me into a hug. That's all I've ever wanted, Jamie. For you to try. We talked for hours, sitting on that narrow guest bed, our hands intertwined. I told him about my childhood, about the fear that had shaped me. He told me about his own struggles, about coming out to his parents and the relief of being accepted. For the first time, I felt like we were equals, two people facing the same uncertainties, but stronger together. When we kissed, it was different, deeper, more certain. It wasn't just about want. It was about trust, about building something real. I went home that night with a flicker of hope, but also a new resolve. I had to face my parents, not just for Ethan, but for myself. The next day, I called my mom. My hands shook as I dialed, but I couldn't keep hiding. Mom, I said, my voice steady despite the fear. There's something I need to tell you. Telling my mom was like jumping off a cliff. I expected anger, tears, maybe silence. Instead, she listened. Jamie, she said when I finished, I love you. I don't understand everything, but I want to. Can you give me time? Time. The same thing I'd asked of Ethan. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me, tears stinging my eyes. Yeah, Mom. I can do that. When I told Ethan, he grinned, pulling me into a hug. That's huge. Jamie, I'm proud of you. But my dad was another story. Mom promised to talk to him, but I knew it wouldn't be easy. He was old school, set in his ways, and the thought of his disapproval kept me up at night. Still, I felt lighter, like I'd shed a weight I'd carried for years. Ethan and I grew closer, our relationship no longer a secret. We held hands in public, kissed in the park, and slowly, I started to feel like myself, not the version I pretended to be, but the real me. Friends like Mia were supportive, but others, like Liam, made snide comments. I learned to ignore them, to focus on the people who mattered. One day, my dad called. His voice was gruff, hesitant. Your mom told me, he said. I don't get it. Jamie. I don't know if I ever will. But you're my son, and I don't want to lose you. It wasn't perfect, but it was a start. I cried after we hung up, and Ethan held me, his presence a reminder that I wasn't alone. We were building something, not just a relationship, but a life where we could be ourselves. As spring turned to summer, we made planned trips to the coast, late-night study sessions, dreams of a future together. There were still challenges, still moments of doubt, but we faced them together. And every time I looked at Ethan, I saw the person who'd walked into that bathroom and changed everything. A year later, we stood on a beach in Cape Cod, the wind tugging at our clothes, the ocean stretching out before us. Ethan's hand was warm in mine, his smile brighter than the summer sun. We'd come far from that cramped Brooklyn bathroom, from the fear and uncertainty that had defined us. Looking back, that moment Ethan walking in, his eyes locking with mine was the spark that lit the fire. It forced me to confront who I was, to choose between hiding and living. And I chose to live. My parents were still adjusting, but they were trying. Dad even invited Ethan to Thanksgiving, a small gesture that meant the world. Our friends had become our family, cheering us on, reminding us that love was worth fighting for. As the waves crashed against the shore, Ethan turned to me, his eyes full of the same intensity they'd held that first night. "I love you, Jamie," he said, his voice steady. "Sure. I love you too," I said. And for the first time, I believed it believed in us, in the life we were building. The world wasn't perfect, and neither were we, but we were enough. We stood there, hand in hand, the future uncertain but ours to shape. And in that moment, I knew that no matter what came next, we'd face it together, two people who'd found each other in the steam and chaos of a single, life-changing glance.